Hi friends and welcome. We're going to talk about bread, in particular sourdough bread. Yep, I've been experimenting thanks to the help of some great YouTube videos with sourdough starter. I have always shied away from it, but I made the most delicious, crusty, robust flavored bread. Not everything always turns out the way you expect, but through trial and error, you can end up making some delicious recipes with the starter. And it's simple and easy. And what could be better than bringing out one of my favorite bowls that belonged to my grandmother and just feeling her presence with me as I experimented making bread. Stay tuned. Let's talk about sourdough and cast iron. And this particular video is going to be about some of the recipes that I have been experimenting and trialing during this time period. So let's get started. First of all, I want to share this with you, which is a little bit heavy right now. This is my sourdough starter. Yet I decided to venture out and take a crack at it. I always thought sourdough bread and starters were so hard to start and to maintain, and it's quite the opposite. It really is on the opposite end of the spectrum. I did a lot of looking up videos and looking through my cookbooks, and there's just a lot of variations for your starters, and most everybody kind of agrees they're pretty hard to mess up, especially once you get one established. So this starter is a couple of weeks old only, so it's relatively new, but it is bubbling inside. I've already fed it once for today, and I keep it out on my counter because of what I'm planning to do. And right now, as I'm sitting here, I can smell the wonderful aroma of a sourdough bread in the oven, and it'll be done shortly, and I can share that with you. And I'm going to be making some pancakes over the weekend, so I want to have a good supply of it. One of the videos recommended actually to cook your pancakes using cast iron instead of a griddle, and it really does cook the pancakes quickly and evenly. Because I want to be able to put some of it in the freezer, and then it brings the starter down and you just keep feeding it. And when I don't want it to continue with the fermentation process and fermenting, I just put it in the refrigerator, and that just kind of stops it and slows that growth down. And then when you're ready to use it and feed it, you bring it back out to room temperature. So it's been relatively easy. Now, I can tell you at this point, I've made sourdough pancakes, and I did blueberry, and then one I did with some cut up bananas and nuts in it. And I used my cast iron skillet. That's the other thing I want to talk to you about, the cast iron skillet. I have two of them, so I had two pans going at the same time, and it made the process so quick. And the best way to describe those pancakes is it's a combination of like a crepe and a pancake that married each other. They're light, they are delicious, they are just packed with flavor, but they don't raise like high stacked pancakes. If that's kind of what you're looking for. These really aren't like that, but they're not super thin. They're perfect, and they are so light to eat and delicious. So my mom and my husband just raved and said they are wonderful. And then I just had to say, well, I've got to count the points for this and just eat 2 of these. And yeah, they were yummy, so delicious. So, you know, is it worth the trouble? It's not a lot of trouble. I mean, it was a basic pancake recipe with the amount of starter, flour, eggs, a little bit of baking soda, which really makes it grow, and coconut oil in the actual pancake mix. And then I used my cast iron skillet. Now, this was one size that I used, and then I have another skillet that's just got the little flat side, just, you know, that much, and I used it. It was about the same circumference around, and I have a very, very large cast iron skillet, huge, for deep frying if I wanted to do like a combination of 2, but I just felt that those 2 pans, they kept the process going quickly. They don't take a long time. They start to bubble. One of the videos I watched said you want to make sure you're just doing a 1 flip. They flipped easily. They were just absolutely delicious. And I just want to encourage you to try your own starter. And it really works, especially if you have a family who really loves, you know, pancakes. There's a whole lot of recipes that you can make with it. Now, on the flip side, I've been experimenting also with some breads. And I did a sourdough bread with a white wheat flour combination mix and starter, and I have to say it was a fail, but it can be expected when you're first experimenting and you're, you know, putting things together for the first time new. I was short on honey, and because of the white whole wheat flour I used, and not having enough honey, I thought, oh, I don't need that much honey. I mean, so what if I'm short? It made a difference in the taste. It had a sour taste to it, but it was bitter. Yeah. The loaves came out, I did them in pans, and they came out fine. And it did raise. The texture was a little denser than I had anticipated. So I cut into it and toasted. It was just on the okay scale. And I gave a piece to my mom, and she had it with butter and honey, and she said it was okay. But no, I will try it again. And that particular recipe called for the starter and the flour and then kneading. So right now in the oven, I have a basic sourdough recipe that was almost like a no knead. You just kind of fold it all together, the ingredients, and you do a little folding over with the actual dough, but this one is being cooked in my La Crusette cast iron, and I'm anxious to see it. Went through the raising process fine. It's a little more stepwise, like as opposed to making some bread with yeast and you let it raise and then punch it down and then let it raise again, and you know, then you form it and then you're ready to bake it after a couple of raisings. This is kind of like more of an overnight raise after you mix everything. So I did that, and then I just followed the instructions. So I'm anxious to see it when it's done and to show it to and share it with you. I think that these pans and things like cast iron that are enamelate they're just fantastic pans to add to your collection if you don't have them. They're wonderful. I mean, anything I make, this is a very well seasoned pan. I have had this for years and years. I don't even know where I got it, but you can see it has a beautiful finish on it, and no matter what I make in it, it's it comes so good. So I wanted to share that with you. Another recipe that I tried this week, and I'm gonna try to put pictures up of all these that I've taken along the way. And this one I don't have a picture of because sometimes I just get preoccupied and busy and then I forget, but it was called Poor Man's Meal, and it is from Clara's Kitchen. Her recipe of back in the Depression days, and I don't know why it sounded so good to me, but it was potatoes, onions, seasoning, and then your poor man's portion are hot dogs that you cut up and mix after you fry your potatoes and onions. And guys, it was so good. It was so good. And I'm a potato person. I like that. It was my cast iron skillet that I used, and I cubed up the potatoes that I had and I needed to use them, and I put onions and garlic and just some basic salt, pepper, and got them good and crispy, and then I added cut up hot dogs, and I used good brand of hot dogs. It was good. It was good. So I'm just experimenting with some things that I would normally like. No, hot dogs, no, don't do hot dogs. And I could have done turkey dogs, but I just want to try to replicate these recipes as authentically as I can from what someone, and to see if they're a thumbs up or a thumbs down. And that one is a thumbs up. I liked it, and I would do it again. I would make it again. So that kind of leads me into just another memory story. And the memory story is, and I've probably shared this before, but it was my dad's favorite meal that my grandmother used to make. And I didn't learn about it until after my dad had passed from my aunt. She is the one who shared it with us. She had my mom and I over for dinner after my dad had passed, and she fixed this, and she said, your dad absolutely loved this. And I was like, what? Why didn't I know this? Why didn't I know this? And it was just so good. And what it was is cube steak and Italian bread sliced in half, and then a mixture of soft butter, and my aunt roasted garlic, and then made garlic butter and smeared it all over the bread, and seasoned the cube steaks with salt, pepper, and a little bit of kind of like a Lowry's. And then in the butter, she chopped up a big hunk of fresh parsley, smeared it all over the bread, and put a dollop on the top of the cube steak and broiled this. Now, that's the timer telling me that the bread might be done, so let me go check it out. Come on, guys, I've got to take you with me. You've got to see this firsthand or I'll forget. Look at that. That looks beautiful. It looks crusted. It sounds crusted. I'm going to give it maybe 2 more minutes. I don't know. It looks pretty darn appetizing, but let's just do 2 more minutes. And then I'll remove it. Ooh, I'm so excited. But anyways, back to my story. So she would broil it. And I was like, well, don't you think you should like kind of pre-cook the meat first? Because all the juices, she goes, oh no, that's what makes this so wonderful. And you're broiling it at that temperature just to crust up the bread. And I was like, yeah, I don't know. When I make it, I kind of render that red meat stuff out. And she goes, people eat steaks rare. It's the same. Well, okay, whatever. But anyways, I just kind of brown it a little bit on both sides. And then I put it on the bread and then I stick it in the broiler and oh, it's so good. And it was my dad's favorite meal. It was something that probably the meat was cheap then. And it was something that she could slice up and serve out. And she said, my grandma made it all the time. And I remember on the way home saying to my mom, why didn't you ever make that? I mean, if it was something that Dad liked and Grandma, you know, I don't understand why we never, I don't know. I guess because it was just plain, just a piece of meat on bread. But, oh, the flavoring of fresh parsley and butter, garlic, oh. And that's really what makes it, is roasting your garlic and then popping them all out, smushing them down in the butter, and then fresh parsley. It's good, really good. So, yeah, it just reminds me of, you know, this is a time that, you know, maybe we should concentrate on things in years past when times were very difficult, very hard for people. And there it is again, 2 minutes is up. I'll be right back. Might as well share as long as I'm doing this. Hopefully you can see it as it comes out. Okay, I did score it on the top, but I have a piece of parchment paper inside. Ooh. Let me turn the oven off. I want to check the bottom. I'm gonna move this pan because it is super hot. Can you let me see this? Oh, guys, look at that. Ooh, that's beauty. Now, it's not perfect. I did score it, but I guess I needed to do it a little bit deeper because you can't really see the lines, but that's just some flour that I sprinkled on the top, so I'll probably just remove that, but it looks beautiful. I'm going to let it cool, and then I'm going to cut into it, but you can hear the crunchiness. I think that means it's going to be yummy. So, yeah, I think it's important that we just kind of maybe relive some of memories from past. And I've really enjoyed watching some stories about, you know, foods related to past times. And most everybody always says the same thing. We were poor and we didn't have much, but because of the bounty of gardens, we had food and we had each other. And I'm like, wow, pretty profound, pretty simple, pretty basic. And hopefully maybe it's something that we can relearn and just be thankful for the things that we do have. But I've been having a blast just, you know, trying and experimenting with things that are new. And yeah, I'm pretty excited about that bread. My problem is going to be keeping it in control, you know, not overdoing it. So I hope this is encouraging. I hope you'll try this mix of sourdough and make an attempt to try pancakes. It's simple, it's basic, it's easy, and I think things aren't as difficult sometimes as we make them out to be. So Just wanted to share this quick one with you. I'm trying to think. I will put in this video if there's been some, I'm trying to think, was there another meal I made that was something new? I don't think so. I think I've been pretty much just concentrating on, I'll show you a picture of what my wheat kind of bread looked like, and then wait until this cools, cut into it, and share that with you. So until my next video, be kind, be humble, age gracefully. Bye. Okay, guys, I just took the first cutting. It looks really delicious. I know it's delicious because you can see I have a piece in my hand. It has a fantastic sourdough taste and flavor. It's so crusty